Thank you for joining me here on the last segment of today's show. Just going over a brief news roundup on some pretty significant news that we got over the last few days that I just didn't get a chance to fully talk about in an entire segment. So I thought I'd throw it all in here and just give my thoughts on some of the bigger ones going into the second preseason weekend here for the NFL. One of the biggest ones is the fact that yesterday, just the day after the Falcons traded for Matthew Judon, they go ahead and sign one of the best remaining free agents left on the market in Justin Simmons to a 1-year, $8 million deal with $7.5 million guaranteed to the now 30-year-old Justin Simmons, but still just as elite as you would want in a free agent acquisition that you get at this point in the year. To get Justin Simmons, a two-time Pro Bowler, four-time second-team All-Pro, and just coming off the bat of last year, 70 total tackles, 1 sack, and 3 interceptions, to have him form a duo with Jesse Bates, who last year put up a great campaign for the Atlanta Falcons and their defensive side of the ball, to have both of them now in there, the experience, the knowledge, and just the veteran savviness that you have in your backfield to kind of quarterback everything is going to be huge for this defense that just in a matter of days have gone from looking pretty good, pretty average looking defense to one of the better ones, I would say, at least in their division. I think for the longest time it has been the Saints with arguably the better defense in that division, but now the Falcons, I think, give them a good run for their money. And across the NFC, they have a lot of experienced guys now on their defense. You look at Grady Jarrett, the two safeties, Justin Simmons and Jesse Bates. A.J. Terrell is also very good. So they have a guy just about at every spot on the defensive side of the ball that is very formidable, has a good reputation in this league. So Raheem Morris, being a defensive-minded coach, obviously putting some emphasis on that, bringing in some guys to help him right away to have a lot of success this year. And I think it goes along with the expectations that we have for the Falcons. And now the fact that they have Simmons and Judon now on this team just adds to the possibility that this year could be a very impressive one for the Falcons. So in reality, I don't like it, being a Steelers fan, having to face Simmons and Matthew Judon, but as a fan of football, I think this is awesome for the Falcons. It's good for them, and hopefully they capitalize on this now heading into the new year. Now moving on to another significant piece of news here that we got over the last few days. Pretty devastating news for the Buffalo Bills as they announced on Wednesday that their all-pro linebacker Matt Milano will have to go surgery on his torn bicep that he suffered at Tuesday's practice this week. And clearly, after the fact that you lose like Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, Tre'Davious White, all veteran players on that defensive side of the ball, and not just players like on the field, but leaders in that locker room, establishing your culture that you want to transcribe to all of these younger players coming in now, younger players that are going to have to play a big role in 2024. All of those guys are, now gone, and the fact that Matt Milano was still there coming off of I think he suffered a fracture last year. I had it on here. I forget what it was. He suffered a fracture, just a bad, he fractured his leg last year and only played 5 games, but the fact that he was, it was so anticipated that he was going to come back this year. You're going to have that veteran presence in that defensive side of the ball. Now that he has torn his bicep before playing any games is gut-wrenching. It has the air leave your body when you hear news like that. And I'm not a Bills fan or anything like that, but to know that Matt Milano recovered so well, was about to play, and then just to go down with a torn bicep and to go through surgery, he's not expected to come back the earliest by December, so he's going to miss most of the regular season. And regardless of whether or not you want to rush him back by December or anything like that, it's a bad situation overall for this Bills team. And now they're going to have to look to a younger guy like Dorian Williams, a third-round pick just from last year, is the most likely to step up and sort of supplement that role of Matt Milano. And obviously there's no direct replacement in that role for Milano and everything that he brought to this team. But somebody has to do it. Somebody has to fill that void, and they're very young now on that defensive side of the ball. I mean, they still have Von Miller, Ed Oliver, and AJ Epinesa on, the front line. But, once you get past that front, very good defensive line, you have young linebackers now. You have young secondary players. And a lot of the times, a lot of miscommunication happens from that point on the defensive side of the ball, which could lead to some bad looks. Again, like I said, miscommunications, missed assignments, and things like that. And Matt Milano's certainly going to be missed. All those guys are going to be missed. But you kind of had some relief that Milano was at least going to be there. To lose him for basically all of 2024, it stinks. It's really unfortunate for the Bills, but it only really adds, you lose Matt Milano, but the funny thing is it doesn't really take away any pressure from what the Bills are going to face, just because there's always scrutiny and pressure on the shoulders of Josh Allen, just because he is in that upper echelon of quarterbacks. So you would think that this would ease off some of the pressure, especially because they moved on from Stephon Diggs as well. But it's funny that, if anything, it's going to be spun in a way where more pressure is going to be on Josh Allen now, because everyone's going to look to him, because you have no Matt Milano, you have no Diggs, you have no veteran presence. There's almost more pressure now, and I feel like that's going to be the narrative going forward for Josh Allen. And again, regardless of if it's fair or not, I feel like it's going to be put out there as a narrative, and Josh Allen is going to be pointed to a lot if the Bills are struggling at some point, where you got to really know the entire context and realize that as good as Josh Allen is, it can't all be on him for how much losses this Bills team has gone through. So unfortunate news again, but the next piece I wanted to talk about was heading into the second preseason game here. Like I mentioned, Russell Wilson is expected to make his Steelers debut tomorrow in their second preseason game against the Bills. Funny enough, Russell Wilson has been a full participant in practice over the last few days, pretty much this entire week, and I think a little bit of last week as well. And now, after they had their joint practice with the Bills on yesterday, again, Russell Wilson played pretty well, and Mike Tomlin spoke to the media afterwards and pretty much confirmed that Russell Wilson will be starting in tomorrow's game along with all the other starters. So it's pretty significant just from that standpoint that we're going to see Russ not only play for the first time in a Steelers uniform in any capacity, but the fact that he is starting goes along with the entire, news that we've heard about him being in the pole position, this still being his job. Mike Tomlin stays true to his word, and he is starting him. And it is pretty, even though that is the fact that Mike Tomlin is still starting him, there is still some urgency that Russell Wilson should show, just because, you missed already a good amount of time. And in that time, you had Justin Fields impressing a lot of people and looking better than I think a lot of people originally expected. I think most people believe that the progression that Justin Fields has shown already wasn't going to come until halfway through the season or something like that, and almost at a point where you had to just start Justin Fields. But now I think Fields has taken full advantage of his opportunity, taken full advantage of Russell Wilson being out, and he's impressed already enough. And going back to the first preseason game, yeah, it didn't go as you would expect for Justin Fields, but again, I don't put too much stock in those two fumbles. Honestly, I really don't. I feel like a lot of people have run with that narrative of, you see the two fumbled snaps and people right away, jump out of their seats and go, look, that's why Justin Fields shouldn't start. That's exactly the reason why they need Russell Wilson. And it's the preseason game. I know you don't want to see those mistakes happen, but to completely, forget or not even pay attention to how well, not Russell Wilson, but Justin Fields looked in the other plays that he had, some of the throws, and just overall how the offense looked. That's what I was really pulling from that game, overall, how the overall offense looked. And to me, there was some signs of growth just from last year to this year in terms of the offense and how it was being run. The fact that he fumbled those two snaps, it wasn't too big of a concern to me. I can't just forget everything I've seen from Justin Fields just for a moment where two snaps were fumbled, where it was his fault, but also the center's fault as well. But Russell Wilson will start. That is pretty much the news for that Steelers game, how he plays with the first team offense, and also how Justin Fields sort of rebounds from the first week of preseason and tries to stack up good performances from week to week will also be huge to continue to have that pressure applied there to Russell Wilson. But those were really the three pieces of news that I wanted to bring you guys here just shortly here to close out this episode, and things that we're going to be looking forward to going into this week with Russell Wilson, and then in the future with how the Bills look and the Falcons as well should be something to keep an eye on as we move on. But that'll pretty much do it. That'll wrap it up for today's show. I want to thank you guys for joining me. Please remember to like, follow, and subscribe to the show as well, on top of following the network on all forms of social media. If you want to see more of this show, check out the Podcast Network channel and the Sports Network channel on YouTube for a lot more content around the NFL regarding this show. And lastly, tune in every weekday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time for more storylines around the NFL and discussions on them with me, Manny Maradiaga, as your host. Thanking you guys for joining me. Hope you guys all have a great weekend. Check out those preseason games, and I'll see you guys back on here with me on Monday.
Mm-hmm. 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 Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to